Over the years, at various times, I have given a definition for faith to make it a little distinct from belief. And what I have usually said is that when I hear the word belief, I think much more of an intellectual assent to truths that are given, that are revealed. So that, when I say I believe in one God, I believe it because I have the information and I have been taught. So it seems to me to be more up in here. And when I talk about faith, I want to say that faith is my involvement with what I believe. It's my commitment to what I believe. In other words, I put myself all in when I say that I have faith. And the thing I usually use as a distinction is to say the devil believes in God, but the devil has no faith. He has no faith. He is not involved in the life of God at all. But he believes in God. He has to believe in what he's against. And so for us, when we hear this gospel today in particular, the second portion of it, where the icon on the front of the bulletin that says Syrophoenician woman, but in Matthew's account, she's called a Canaanite woman. In either event, she is not a Jew. She is a pagan. But something in what she heard about Jesus, something in what she may have witnessed, stirred something in her. And so she comes to him definitely desperate for her daughter, but particularly knowing that what she heard about Jesus has brought her to this place, and now she's throwing herself all in, literally throwing herself at Jesus' feet to beg of him this gift of healing for her daughter. And in Matthew and in Mark's Gospels, it's pointed out very clearly how Jesus regards this at this particular moment in his ministry, that this isn't the time for him to be dealing with people who are not of the Jews. But nevertheless, here is this moment where now the teaching is going to be seen as for everybody, that faith is a gift that God can give not just to his chosen ones, his chosen people, but it's a gift that he can give to all. What they do with it, it may be a different thing. But in this case, here's this woman, not of the people of God, but knowing something intuitively even from Jesus, this inspiration to come to ask and to plead and to basically spar with him verbally, by answering him back. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. And so Jesus realizes this. Of course, he knew anyway. But what comes out and what he helps his apostles to see and to begin to understand is that the gift of faith can be given to anybody. And that gift of faith can lead to this moment of asking and pleading beyond the boundaries of what was considered acceptable. Because not only was she a pagan, but she was a she. And no single woman would ever have been able, without causing commotion, to speak to a man in public who was not her husband. But this woman comes, and she comes to Jesus because she has this gift of faith. She's willing to take this risk, give herself totally into this, in the hope that he would act. And we see that the mercy of God, the compassion of Christ, that his heart is moved, that he does this for this woman. And he doesn't have to go to her. He just says, your daughter is cured. Your daughter will be well. And she was. So this is, again, an invitation to all disciples to take seriously the gift of faith that we have received. And that sometimes, we might hold ourselves back because we're not sure if we can trust God enough. And by that I mean, if I really surrender myself, if I really, go all in on this with Jesus, what's going to change in my life? Am I going to then have to become more prayerful? Am I going to become less able to carry on the kinds of conversations or spout the same kind of stuff that I normally have because, something is going to be different, demanded from me? My conduct, maybe the way I look at other people, other races, other political views, other religions. How am I going to be different if I really go all in? Do I want to do this? The fact that faith invites us to a commitment of self, I think we see also in the first lesson today from the book of Genesis. Now, Joseph could have been a real, mean, vindictive man. And he would have been totally justified in taking vengeance on his brothers who sold him into slavery. But because Joseph was a man who already understood the gift of faith, he became a different kind of person in that experience in Egypt. And it wasn't an easy thing that he went through. Don't forget that he gets accused at one point of trying to seduce Pharaoh's wife, and he gets thrown into prison. And he's there for a long time. And even the people that he thought would help him forgot about him. But eventually, his gifts come to be seen, and Pharaoh not only gets him out of prison and forgets about all the accusation, but he begins to entrust him with all kinds of authority, power, and dignity. And then what happens is that the insight that he has, this life of faith that he has, even though he's certainly not openly practicing any form of Judaism in the midst of Egypt, but yet it was in him, it was there. And so when he finally has this encounter with his brothers, even though he does play with them, read the story, they come and he does things for them, but then calls them back, accuses them of things. He's doing these kinds of things. But he's just kind of checking them out, seeing what kind of people they really are. But once he comes to himself and realizes what really the truth is, his faith takes over and he becomes this great forgiver, as well as embracing them and wanting to then bring them all to live in Egypt, which they do. And in salvation history, that time when they move into the land of Goshen, where they were to stay because they tended sheep and the Egyptians didn't like sheep for whatever reason. They thought they were terrible, dirty, smelly animals. And so These people can have this land as long as they keep their sheep over there. They are there, and they're there for 400 years until then the Exodus takes place. But it's the faith that Joseph has in God that leads him to say, you know, you guys thought you were doing me harm, but actually you were doing a great good because God really wanted you to have me sent here. And God has been able to work through me. And God it is now who is providing a way for you to live, a way for you to continue, a way for this people of his to go on beyond starvation, beyond fear, to know God's providence and care and love and mercy. And so it was that gift of faith that he had that allowed him to make that interpretation when, you know, he could have been a much different person. So for us, here we are. And I just saw in the newspaper this morning that King County and Will County are being told that you know, our numbers of coronavirus cases are going up. Yes. And my immediate reaction was, and I shared it with Joel when I came this morning, was, I sure hope they don't close us down again. And so, you know, it may seem trivial in some way, but nevertheless, I know that I have struggled in dealing with this coronavirus and trying to deal with it from a perspective of faith. You know, we have had to make all kinds of adaptations in our lives. There's still the question about whether people are going to be able to go back to school or not, or how many days of remote learning as well as in-person learning, or if there's going to be any in-person learning at all. And then what that does to parents and who gets to go back to their work and who has to work from home. And all of these kinds of things, plus what's if we are told that we can't congregate anymore, even the few of us who are here this morning, if we can't congregate anymore until the numbers go down, you know, that's something I don't even want to think about. But yet it doesn't change God's love for us. It doesn't change our faith in him. It might challenge it, at least it feels challenging to me, to have to deal with all of these different kinds of possibilities. But yet it's the gift of faith that God has given to you, to me, and to countless others that calls us to a response that isn't reacting to fear or to anger or to resentment, even though those things can certainly come up, as Jesus says in the first part of the gospel today. They come out of the human heart. But I think that gift of faith that we have, if we continue to ask the Lord to stir it up in us and strengthen us and to release it in us, that even if we have more setbacks, even if we experience other kinds of setbacks in our life, the sickness of a loved one or the death of someone close to us or the loss of job or whatever it might be, that we know that God is still God, and we know that God is with us, and we know that we are invited to be with him. And that's one of the reasons why we gather here. One of the reasons why those who are on Zoom this morning are there, because we all know in our heart of hearts who God is, what it is that God wants from us, and how the Lord invites us to continue on a daily basis to surrender ourselves, to be all in every day so that we can be sure of the foundation upon which we stand, so that we can be assured that we are not by ourselves in any of this, and so that we also will know that we can give an example to others, that we don't have to become embittered, mean-spirited people who, because of differences or whatever, end up being, against this, against them, against that idea, against this and that. Doesn't mean that we become incapable of having an opinion, but that we don't become like Joseph could have become, that we become more truly faithful with the God who has given us this gift that keeps us going, keeps us growing, keeps inviting us more deeply into the very life of God, so that we can give that example to other people. And in the communion that we are able to receive this morning in person, as well as those who will receive spiritually, is that living reminder to us of God with us, of Christ coming to us, becoming more truly a part of us, even as we become more truly a part of Him.